Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now basically getting closer to the end of November of 2022, and a lot of Star Wars fans around the world have really been embracing change over at Lucasfilm and what Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are currently setting up for the future of the Star Wars universe and exactly where it's all going for the franchise to really evolve, coming from, of course, Disney CEO Bob Iger now. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, for those of you that don't know, Bob Iger is a CEO of Disney that has been heavily criticized, and a lot of fans, let's be honest and real here, have valid reasons behind that. He is the guy that approved Kathleen Kennedy's treatments of the sequel trilogy movies. He's the guy that allowed her to reshoot 80% of the Han Solo film, and even though it performed very badly at the box office, he blamed it as a frequency issue, when in reality it was just that it didn't do all that well at the box office, on top of them spending tens of millions of dollars to refilm a large portion of it. Now, on top of all of this, Bob Iger now coming in as the new Disney CEO after Bob Chapek, the previous one now, got fired by the board, of course, since they were looking for a proper CEO to handle things moving forward. This is a very interesting development because now Bob Iger is getting desperate. He's panicking about Disney as a company, and especially how he's going to be able to really gain the confidence to really improve himself when it comes to Star Wars, Marvel, and different franchises across the board. Now, on top of all of this, what's even all the more intriguing about this has a lot to do with what, of course, Iger has planned for Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy. Now, with both Favreau and Filoni beginning to develop new Star Wars TV shows for the franchise, Disney CEO Bob Iger is now getting ready to make some major adjustments to the Star Wars universe and how Lucasfilm performs as a company. Now, it's noted that, of course, the new Disney CEO, Bob Iger, currently has a strategy and plan mapped out to fire Kathleen Kennedy and let her go from Lucasfilm. However, Iger wants to create it as a cover, making it as if Kennedy is standing down instead of making her firing public. What Iger plans to do right now is taking Kathleen Kennedy off as a producer for multiple upcoming Star Wars shows one by one, leading up to her official firing entirely from the company in order to bring in a new Lucasfilm president that is fully aware of how Star Wars works with the fans and the established plans. What Chapek wanted to be, of course, before he was fired, was to bring in Hollywood producer Jerry Bruckheimer to handle the Lucasfilm company. However, there are other candidates that Bob Iger is now looking at to replace Kathleen Kennedy with to better aid Lucasfilm and the Star Wars brand. Now, let me just stop here for a second. For those of you that don't know anything about what's been going on, Bob Iger basically was the Disney CEO for a very long time. Very long time. We're talking about years upon years, even before The Force Awakens came out. Then Chapek came in around, I would say, Q2 of 2020. And that's when, things started to shift a little bit with the Disney parks and how he was trying to outperform Iger at the time and how he handled Star Wars. It was really a battle of the Bobs, alright? So, we had these two Bobs handling the Disney universe, the Disney Star Wars universe, let's just say. And it really was like a back and forth battle because they wanted to outperform each other. You guys can look it up. There was this awkward transition when Iger was getting out and Chapek was going in. They don't like each other. Surprisingly, you would think that they would, but they don't. They do not like each other in the slightest. They have this grudge against each other, something that we will never know about. We only know a portion about it, that it has something to do with the business end of Disney as a company and how they're handling things, but I digress. This is where things begin to really progress when it comes to Bob Iger. Now, we already know that Bob Iger talked about how he's going to handle Lucasfilm. Just yesterday, he talked about this, of how Jon and Dave's, impact on Star Wars will remain. He's not going to sabotage that. He's not going to get rid of that. There's no plans to do that. So we can relax about that, which is great. That's great news. The thing, though, that makes me a little worried is how they're changing their overall plan of who is going to replace Kathleen Kennedy. The good news is that there are plans to get rid of her. This is happening, and it's going to happen next year. But who is going to replace Kathleen Kennedy? That is all now being changed by Bob Iger. Chapek's initial plans seem to be thrown out the window. He wanted Jerry Bruckheimer, the guy who handled the Pirates movies and all these other major franchises, right? On to the next thing. So, Iger is already planning to get rid of her by the third quarter of 2023, before her 2024 contract comes to an end, a whole year early. And that the first project Kennedy was recently fired from as a producer just yesterday was indeed The Mandalorian Season 4, where Jon Favreau will be taking over as a producer for that second season, or that fourth season, I should say, instead of Kathleen Kennedy handling on the business end. Iger is now described to be desperate to actually get the approval from the overall fans who heavily criticize him and wants to outperform Chapek, since he and Chapek had a falling out and an awkward transition twice now. So, like I mentioned before, when Iger was going out and Chapek was coming in, there was a very awkward transition. The same exact thing happened just a couple of days ago. They don't like each other, and they resent each other for who knows why, but there is something going on there more than the business end of things. But Bob Iger now wants to get desperate, make it up to the fans. He wants to own Star Wars in a way that he's going to be able to really bring things to a new level. Now that's where I get a little bit on edge, where if it's not genuine, it might come out as desperation, where you're not having a passionate view of Star Wars, but let's just focus on the creators, right? That's all up to the creators, John and Dave. He's not going to sabotage that, which is great news. So at least we can focus on that. But Bob Iger, what he is doing is that he is changing who is going to replace Kathleen Kennedy. Now, we're going to be talking about this for the next several months because this is going to be an ongoing development. It's going to be a very interesting tug of war between what's going on over at Disney and what's going over on at Lucasfilm, and how they both perform as companies united. Now, on top of this too, Kathleen Kennedy has been very vocal recently about Indiana Jones 5, Skeleton Crew, The Acolyte. All three projects are, by the way, 100% in her control. As you know, she had another Star Wars project that was cancelled by Bob Chapek. By contract, she was supposed to have 3 Star Wars projects under full creative power. Alright, now, makes you wonder, what is Bob Iger going to do about that? Is he going to reinstate that project, or is he going to leave it off the table? That's the one thing that I think some fans are worried about too. But overall, Iger looks like he wants to improve himself. He wants to gain the overall approval of the fans, and we're going to see him, I think, change a little bit. So overall, guys, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this entire situation between Bob Iger, Bob Chapek, Kathleen Kennedy, etc., and what's going on over at Lucasfilm. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.